I want to ask you something before we start. Have you ever told the truth and had someone look you dead in the eyes and call you a liar? Have you ever tried to protect someone and had that same person turn around and punish you for it? Because that's exactly what happened to a man named Phil. Not a CEO, not a lawyer, not some hero in a suit, a janitor. A 54-year-old man from Cleveland, Ohio, who drove a 2009 Honda Civic to work every morning, ate his lunch in the supply closet because the break room was always too loud, and kept a small spiral notebook in the left pocket of his uniform. That notebook, that beat-up $1.99 spiral notebook, is the reason a $200 million company is still standing today. This is his story. And I promise you, it's unlike anything you've seen on this topic before. Before we go any further, if you're the kind of person who believes that quiet, overlooked people deserve to have their stories told, then this channel was made for you. Every single story we share here is about real human dignity, about the people the world walks past, and what happens when someone finally stops and pays attention. If that moves you the way it moves us, hit that like button right now. It takes 1 second and it tells us to keep making stories like this one. And if you're new here, subscribe and turn on the bell notification. We drop new stories every week, and I promise you, you don't want you to miss what's coming. Now, let's get back to Phil. Phil Walter had worked the night to early morning shift at Enline Group for 9 years. 9 years of the same routine. Clock in at 4 p.m. Work through the night. Clock out by 8 a.m. Just as the suits started arriving with their coffees and their laptops and their conversations he was never supposed to be part of. Most people didn't see Phil. Not really. They saw the mop, the trash bag, the cart with the squeaky left wheel he'd been meaning to fix for 2 years. But Andy Okafor saw Phil. Andy was the CEO of Enline Group, a logistics and supply chain firm with contracts across the US, Canada, and the UK. Built it from nothing. 42 years old. First generation Nigerian American. Father of 3. The kind of man who remembered your name after one conversation and never forgot it. Andy said, "Phil, you're still here? You usually beat me out the door by 20 minutes. Phil replied, "Somebody spilled a full pot of coffee on the 4th floor. You don't want to know." Andy said, wincing, "Yikes, I owe you one. How's your daughter doing? She was applying to that nursing program last time we talked." Phil replied, surprised he remembered, quietly proud. "She got in. Started in September." "Phil, that's everything, man. You tell her congratulations from me." Phil L. watches Andy disappear into the elevator. 9 years. And Andy Okafor had never once walked past Phil without stopping. Never once made him feel like furniture. That's not a small thing. In a world where people like Phil are trained to be invisible, being seen, consistently, genuinely, lands differently than most people realize. Phil didn't worship the man. He wasn't naive. But he respected him deeply. And when the time came, that respect would cost Phil almost everything. It started on a Wednesday, October 14th. Phil remembered the date because it was his late wife's birthday, and he always felt a little heavier on that day. He was wiping down the glass partition near conference room 9B when he heard voices. Not loud, controlled. The kind of quiet that people use when they don't want to be overheard, which, ironically, is the surest way to get overheard. 5 people inside. Phil slows. He's not trying to listen. But the room is small. The vents carry sound. And the words are impossible to ignore. Voice. Deputy Director Edwin Cave. The board presentation is in 22 days. By the time Andy figures out what has happened, the vote will already be done. Then a second voice. "And the financial discrepancy report? Jeff signed off?" Cave said, "He will. I just need to move one more number. The audit trail is buried 3 layers deep. Nobody's digging that far." Third voice. "What about the staff? Andy has loyalists. Kava said flatly. Loyalists don't survive restructuring. They never do. Phil stops completely. His hand is still on the glass. He doesn't move for a full 30 seconds. He didn't panic. He didn't confront anyone. He didn't pull out his phone. He reached into his left breast pocket and took out his notebook. And he wrote down everything he heard. Names, phrases, the time, the date, every word he could catch. Not because he had a plan. Because his father had told him once, when you witness something important, write it down before your memory changes it. Phil was a careful man. Always had been. That night, he went home and stared at the ceiling until 3 a.m. Next morning, Phil waits outside Andy's office. The executive assistant eyes him with polite confusion. Phil almost didn't go in. He stood outside that office for 11 minutes, he counted, talking himself in and out of it. What are you doing, Phil? You're the janitor. You clean floors. You stay in your lane. Nobody wants to hear this from you. But then he thought about Andy stopping to ask about his daughter's nursing program. About 9 years of being treated like a person. He knocked. Andy waves him in, warm as always. Phil, what's up? Is everything okay? Phil nodded slowly. No, sir. I need to tell you something, and I need you to really hear me. Last night, on the 9th floor, I heard a meeting. Mr. Cave was in there. For others. Andy, they were talking about removing you before the board vote. Fake financial documents. An auditor named Jeff. There was a long pause and Andy said, Phil, Edwin Cave has been my deputy director for 7 years. He helped me build this company. Phil answered, I know that. I'm telling you what I heard. And you are certain it was about me? About a removal? Andy replied, I wrote it down, sir. Right when it happened. He places the open notebook on the desk. Andy looks at it. His jaw tightens. Then something shifts. A wall goes up. Andy quietly said, Phil, I appreciate you coming to me. I do. But you have to understand how this looks. You and I have a good relationship, a friendly one. And now you're bringing me an accusation against my second-in-command. Based on something you overheard while cleaning? I understand how it sounds, said Phil. I'm not saying you're lying. I'm saying, think about what you're asking me to do here. Phil picks up his notebook and leaves. He didn't cry. He didn't rage. He just walked back to his cart, put his notebook in his pocket, and finished his shift. But he didn't throw the notes away. 5 days later. Same floor. Same time. Same voices. Phil is there again. And this time, Phil heard something that turned his blood cold. The janitor went to Andy. Andy told me, said Mr. Cave. Phil freezes. Then Mr. Cave gave a cruel smile saying, Don't worry about him. Andy doesn't believe a word of it. The man cleans toilets. Who is going to take his word over mine? Laughter from the room. Phil wrote that down too. Every word. Then he went straight to Andy's office the following morning and asked for 5 minutes. Andy gave him 3. Andy's demeanor is different this time. Stiff. Uncomfortable. Then Phil got the courage and said, They know I came to you. Cave said it in the meeting last night. He said you told him. And he said nobody would believe me because I am the janitor. Andy stands, looked straight at Phil and raised his voice. Phil, I can't keep doing this. I spoke to Edwin Cave. I spoke to legal. There is no plot. There is no fake report. And I cannot have a member of the facilities team coming to my office every week with conspiracy theories about my executive team. Phil tried to explain. They're not theories, he said. Andy wasn't smiling this time, waved his hands towards Phil and said, You're suspended. 2 weeks. Paid. But I need you to go home and I need this to stop. Security appears at the door. Phil looks at Andy one last time. Quietly, with no anger, just sadness, and said, "I hope I'm wrong, Andy, I really do." He walks out. I want to stop here for a second, right at this moment, because I think this is where most of us have been. Maybe not in an office, maybe not with a CEO, but you've been Phil. You know what it feels like to tell the truth and have someone look right through you. To try to do the right thing and get punished for it anyway. Or maybe, and this one's harder to admit, you have been Andy. You had someone come to you with something important, and part of you already knew they were right. But you chose the easier road. Drop a comment right now and tell me, backhand index pointing right, have you ever spoken up at work or in life and been dismissed or shut down? What happened? Or backhand index pointing right, have you ever ignored a warning you later wished you'd listened to? I read every single comment on this channel. Your story might be the one that inspires someone else. So don't hold back. Now Phil went home, suspended, defeated, but he wasn't done. Phil didn't look for another job, didn't file a complaint, didn't post anything online. He sat with it. And on the 9th day of his suspension, he did something that nobody, not Mr. Cave, not Andy, not anyone in that boardroom, ever anticipated. He mailed a copy of his notebook notes to Anline's external legal compliance officer. Not to get anyone fired. Not for revenge. Because the compliance officer's name and address were printed on a laminated card inside every supply closet in the building. Phil had read it 100 times. He just never thought he would need it. 11 days later, Andy is in his office when his phone rings. Unknown number. The call came on a Thursday morning. It was Anline's external legal compliance firm, Edmund and Associates, out of Chicago. They had received an anonymous written submission flagging irregularities in upcoming board documentation. They were legally obligated to investigate before the scheduled board meeting. Within 48 hours, they had pulled the audit files. Within 96 hours, they had found the buried transactions. Edwin Cave was placed on administrative leave pending investigation. 2 of the 5 men from that conference room resigned before they could be formally questioned. Jeff, the auditor, was reported to the state licensing board. The board meeting still happened, but it went very differently than Mr. Cave had planned. Andy sits alone in his office late that night. His wife, Angela, sits across from him. Then his wife said, "You knew, didn't you? Part of you knew Phil was telling the truth." There was a long silence and Andy said, "I didn't want to know. Phil's suspension has ended. He hasn't heard from anyone. He's sitting in his car in the parking lot, debating whether to go in. His phone buzzes. A text from an unknown number. He reads it, exhales, and said to himself, gets out of the car. The text was from Andy. It said 4 words. "Please come see me." Phil walks through the lobby. The receptionist smiles at him differently. Word has gotten around. He enters Andy's office. Andy is standing. No desk between them this time. Andy said, "I owe you more than an apology, Phil, but I'm starting there. I was afraid. I told myself I was being rational, that I was protecting the company from rumors. But the truth is, I was afraid of what it would mean if you were right. Because if you were right, then everything I thought I'd built with Edwin was a lie. And it was easier to doubt you than to face that. You tried twice, and I punished you for it. That is going to sit with me for a long time." Then Phil quietly said, "Are you okay?" Andy gave a genuine laugh. "You are asking me if I am okay." Phil replied, "That is what I came to find out." Andy extends his hand to shake Phil. Phil went back to work that Monday. Andy didn't give him a promotion, didn't hand him a check, didn't put his face on a press release. Instead, he asked Phil what he actually needed. Phil said his supply cart's left wheel had been squeaking for 2 years. It was fixed by Tuesday morning. Here's what I keep thinking about when I come back to this story. Phil didn't save Andy because he was brave. He was terrified both times he walked into that office. He saved him because he was consistent. He wrote things down. He used the system quietly. He didn't give up when he was dismissed, and he didn't blow up when he was suspended. And Andy, for all his success, all his warmth, all his genuine decency, almost lost everything because in the moment that mattered most, he chose comfort over truth. The lesson isn't just be kind to the janitor. The lesson is, the person with the least power in the room is sometimes the only one with nothing to lose by telling the truth. That makes them the most valuable person in the building. Thank you so much for watching this all the way through. Genuinely, it means the world that you gave Phil's story your time today. If this moved you, if it made you think, if it reminded you of someone you know, please share it. Share it with a coworker, a friend, a family member, anyone who needs to be reminded that doing the right thing quietly, without recognition, without applause, still matters. And if you're not subscribed yet, now is the perfect time. Hit that subscribe button and join our community, because every week we bring you stories exactly like this one. Stories about real people, real courage, and the moments that change everything. On Better Life Stories TV, we believe one small act can change a life, because you never know what someone is going through.